Most people think they need somewhere between £500,000 and £1 million, and once they've got there, they'll be fine to retire. And having worked with people over the last 10 years to build their retirement plans, I can tell you this is simply not the case. And unless you know these 7 numbers, your retirement plan is destined to fail. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through the 7 numbers you need to know before you retire. But if you're new here, my name's Ben, and I've worked in financial planning for the last 10 years, helping people build their confidence with their finances and specifically their retirement plan. Now, the first number you need to know is your actual annual spending. And the reason for this is because let's say you're earning £50,000 now, but you're only spending £30,000. You don't need to replace your entire income when it comes to retirement. So really having a good understanding of how much you're spending each month now is the first crucial number you need to know. So what I would suggest you do is go back through your bank statements and group your spending into 3 categories: essential, non-essential, and ad hoc expenses. And this will give you a rough idea as to how much you're spending each month on average. And this is the first number you need to know, because without knowing this, it doesn't matter how much money you've got in your pension. You have no idea if that pension can actually sustain the level of spending you need. The second number you need to know is your guaranteed income. And by this, I mean any income that is guaranteed to be paid to you throughout retirement, regardless of market conditions. Now, for most people, they're going to have the full state pension entitlement, which as we stand today is about £12,500 a year. And this is going to be payable somewhere between 67 and 68, depending on your age. However, you may have other forms of guaranteed income, such as a final salary pension, rental income, or an annuity. The third number you need to know is the number of years between when you retire and when your state pension starts. So, as I said, for most people, their state pension is going to start from age 67 or 68. So, if you're planning to retire, let's say at age 60, you've got 7 or 8 years there where you have no state pension. Now, you may have other forms of guaranteed income, like I said, through your final salary pensions or your rental income. But knowing what that gap is and how much that gap needs to sustain you is really important when it comes to your retirement plan. So let's say, for example, you're planning to spend £30,000 a year throughout retirement, and you're retiring at age 60 and your state pension starts at age 67. You know that over those 7 years, you've got to fund £210,000 worth of expenses. So really understanding what that gap is crucial to having a sustainable retirement plan. And that brings us on to the fourth number you need to know, which is your private income gap. And what I mean by this is the gap between how much you want to be spending ideally in retirement and your guaranteed income. So as an example, let's say you are planning to spend that £30,000 a year throughout retirement, and your only source of guaranteed income are your state pension of £12,500 a year from age 67, and you've got a final salary pension which is going to pay you £5,000 a year from age 60. So you know that between age 60 and 67, you've got your final salary pension of £5,000 and your expenses of £30,000, which means you've got a private income gap between those 2 years of £25,000. You then know that from age 67 onwards, you've got your final salary pension of £5,000, you've got your state pension of £12,500, which is £17,500. So from that point onwards, your private income gap is £12,500 a year. Now the fifth number you need to know is your withdrawal rate. And what I mean by this is how much as a percentage you need to draw from your savings and investments and pensions each year to fund your lifestyle. Now for most people, this figure is going to be somewhere between 3.5% and 5%. But ultimately the figure that applies to you is going to depend on things such as how long the money must last, what you're invested in within your pensions and investments, and any other guaranteed income that you've got. Now, before we go on to the final 2 numbers, if you are enjoying the video and getting some value from it, please do subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this on retirement planning and personal finances. Now, the 6th number is your taxable income. And why this is really important to understand is because if you are planning to spend that £30,000 a year in retirement, you need a taxable income of more than this, because quite clearly that £30,000 spending is after tax. So what we need to do is actually understand how your pensions are taxed and therefore how much your gross income needs to be to fund that £30,000 a year. For most people, they're going to have the full personal allowance in retirement of £12,500 a year, which once your state pension comes in is pretty much covered by the state pension, because as we stand today, those 2 figures are more or less the same. But if you are planning to retire before the age of state pension, then clearly you've got that £12,500 a year, which you really want to be maximising. And the reason I say this is because I see a lot of people early in retirement wanting to use their ISA to fund their expenses. But ultimately, you are leaving money on the table by doing this because you've got that £12,500 a year to use as a personal allowance. So if you are funding all of your expenses from your savings and your ISAs, you are leaving that £12,500 allowance on the table. Because as we know, any money you take from your ISA is tax-free. So it's really important that you understand the allowances and how that interacts with your taxable income and therefore the amount you're going to be spending in retirement. Now, the final number you need to understand is your downside number. What happens if markets fall by 15 to 20% whilst you're taking withdrawals from that pension? Does that make those withdrawals unsustainable compared to what they were before the market correction? And this is a really important thing you need to understand when it comes to retirement, is that the returns you get on your pension throughout retirement are not going to be linear. And this can make a massive difference to the sustainability of the amount you're drawing from your pension each year. So what you need to think about is how flexible is your retirement plan? What can you do if markets fall? So for example, could you reduce your discretionary spending for, let's say, a year? Could you delay that large purchase such as a car or home renovation? Or could you use some cash reserves instead of selling investments in your pensions? And the reason I say this is because a strong retirement plan is one with flexibility built into it. And this is one of the most important things you need to have around your retirement plan, because there's no point sitting down at the age of 60 and saying, this is going to be exactly what I'm going to do for the next 30 years, because in reality, that just isn't going to happen. And that's why it's really important that you are reviewing these year on year, adjusting things where necessary depending on market conditions and your personal circumstances. So to recap, the 7 numbers you need to know are your actual annual spending, any guaranteed income that you've got, how many years between when you retire and the state pension age, and then from there you can work out what your private income gap is. You also need to be aware of your planned withdrawal rate, your taxable income figure, and finally your downside number. Now ultimately, we're not looking for a perfect number here. We are looking for a situation where when you combine all 7 of those numbers, you have a sustainable and a reliable retirement plan. And ultimately, if the plan only works when markets continue to rise, your spending doesn't change, and the assumptions are perfect, then clearly this is not right. Because we need to build, as I said earlier, an element of flexibility into all retirement plans and stress testing these based on a variety of different market scenarios and personal circumstances. Now, if you're wondering, am I on track to retire when I want to with the income I want? What I would suggest you do is use my free retirement calculator, and you can find a link to this in the description below. And what this allows you to do is you can go on and enter your own details. So your current age, what your current pension pot size is, how much you're saving towards retirement each month, and how much you would ideally like to spend each month or each year in retirement. And once you've inputted that, what the calculator does is uses a broad set of assumptions to actually show you if you are on track to retire when you want to with the income you want. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video and got some value from it. If you did, please do consider subscribing to more videos just like this in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.